Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Star Wars Talk, the best day of the week, when all we do is not only talk about our favorite things, movies, but our favorite thing in the world of movies, which is, of course, Star Wars, everything Star Wars, and nothing but Star Wars. And that's what we're going to do here for the next 30 to 45 minutes here talking about Star Wars. Got a lot of stuff to go over. It's only a couple of weeks away now. Star Wars Solo is just a few weeks away now. It is getting closer and closer. Ann and I are actually going to go see it on Thursday. Thursday night, the 10th, is when we get to go see it, which is very encouraging that they're actually doing the premiere for the movie a little over 2 weeks before the movie opens officially. Officially, the movie opens on May 25th. They're doing the premiere for it on the 10th. I think that's a good sign. It's not automatically good, but it's definitely a good sign per se. So looking forward to that. Okay, now we've got a few emails that you guys have sent in here today. How do you get an email on Star Wars Talk? It's simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. And to make sure I know it's for the Star Wars show, put Star Wars in the subject line. Just put Star Wars in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. So with that out of the way, let's get things rolling here with the first question today. And the first question today comes to us from Robert Ingleman, who writes, "Hey, John. I was in the same boat as you about Solo. Didn't think a ton of people would be into the idea of it and that it would make money, but not a ton of money. Now, with all these ticket sales reports and projections of 170 plus million on its opening weekend, do you now believe Solo can be huge? And if so, just how big of an opening weekend can we expect?" Well, that has been the billion-dollar question, Robert, over the past 24 hours. 48 hours, I guess. So this report comes out the other day. For those of you who might have missed it, Fandango puts out a report that says, as you guys know, tickets for Star Wars Solo went on sale. Then Fandango released this press release basically saying that the advanced ticket sales for Star Wars Solo more than doubled the advanced ticket sales of Black Panther in its first 24 hours. So the first 24 hours of Solo ticket sales more than doubled the first 24 hours of Black Panther advanced ticket sales. Now, what ultimately does this mean? It doesn't mean anything for a fact, okay? Just because, let's be clear about this, just because, the first 24 hours, the ticket sales went like gangbusters, doubling that with Black Panther. That does not mean that Solo is going to double the opening weekend of Black Panther, okay? It doesn't mean that at all, okay? Black Panther opened to over $200 million. We're not going to see Solo open to $300 million or $400 million. So let's just get that straight right now. It does not mean that it's going to double the ticket sales of Black Panther on its opening weekend. All it means is that, hey, for that one very small slice of, anecdotal evidence we have, the first 24 hours of ticket sales, it does say something, though, that it seems that the anticipation level for this movie is high enough that we had a whole hell of a lot of people just waiting to buy tickets, waiting for the tickets to go on sale, and boom, they buy a ton of tickets. It is interesting to see that. You combine that with the fact, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of days, because you guys know, just like Robert said, I thought Solo could be great. You got Ron Howard in there. You had Robert Kasdan writing the script. Sure, it can be great. The movie might be great. But I just didn't believe, with all those three major factors. One, too many people apprehensive about seeing a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. So nobody was really asking for this movie. Two, all the behind-the-scenes drama with the film, with firing directors, bringing in a new director, all that kind of stuff. And three, and maybe most significantly, there was a chunk of people that didn't like The Last Jedi. And all these cries we hear, Star Wars is dead now. Okay, sure. If you really believe that, go ahead and believe that. But it was enough to make me go, well, it's still going to do well. It may make $100 million opening weekend, which for a side story that nobody asked for isn't so bad. But then that first projection number came out of $150 million. And I went, wait, what? Even before that projected number, I remember speaking of Black Panther, I was in the movie theater watching Black Panther with a live audience, and the trailers play, and the Solo trailer plays. I thought this is back before the second trailer came out. This was the first trailer. I thought the first trailer was okay. I didn't think it was great. I thought the second trailer was great, but I didn't think the first trailer was great. And I'm sitting in this theater and the Solo trailer plays. By far, the Solo trailer got the biggest pop in the audience. And I was like, what? Like, seriously? I'm looking around. This is, And then we get this tracking numbers come out saying 150 million plus, now saying like 170 million plus. Then we get this report from Fandango about advanced ticket sales, doubling that of Black Panther, only following a bit behind between the advanced ticket sales in the first 24 hours of Avengers Infinity War. I mean, I think we are now at the point that I've had to come around and go, you know what? It's possible, however unlikely, there's a good Star Wars quote for you. It's possible, however unlikely, Solo could become the 7th film in history to open up to 200 million. I never would have thought that possible. I still don't think that'll happen. I still don't think it opens to 200 million. But it is conceivably possible. Now, look, if Black Panther opened to 200 million, and we're seeing the type of pop this movie's getting, we see these advanced ticket sales being as high as they are. Already the tracking has it around 170, and we still have a couple of weeks to go before the movie comes out. And if Disney really believes in this film because they're showing it to us pretty damn early, and if it is that good and gets good positive buzz and positive word of mouth, it's conceivable. It is conceivable that this movie could crack 200 million opening weekend. I never thought that possible. I cannot believe I'm saying it. It's not gonna come close to the Infinity War record, granted, but I gotta say, although I never would have thought the 200 million mark is possible. Now, how much money will Solo make overall? Well, that all depends how good the movie is. Like a big, strong start opening weekend does not guarantee you're going to get to $1 billion. The movie's got to be good, generate positive word of mouth, get second viewings, get people coming back and dragging their friends along with them, and all that's going to come down to the quality of the film. So you can have a big opening weekend, but if the movie's not quality, you're not going to get that sustained legs that you're going to need to cross $1 billion. And really, that's what we're looking at now. Can Solo, I never would have thought Solo was going to join the $1 billion club, but I suppose it's possible. It's possible. That'll all depend on how good or bad the movie is, and we're not going to know that until we see it. So when I see it on Thursday, I will let you guys know how close we are to that, but we're getting closer, guys. We are getting closer. The upside on this movie now is far greater than I ever would have thought before. Far greater than I ever would have thought before. I mean, again, a Solo movie without Harrison Ford, nothing anybody wanted, and yet here we are talking about it's going to clear 150 million opening, maybe even get to 200 million on some little film nobody wanted, and yet here we are. It's nuts. Tell me again how Star Wars is dead. Remember all these knee-jerk reaction people, as soon as they see one movie they didn't like, Star Wars is dead now! Yeah? And Solo comes along and it might hit 200 million. I still don't think it's going to hit 200 million, but it might. Anyway, that's just kind of where we're at right now. All right, let's move on now to the second email question. And the second email question today comes to us from Scott Schreiner, who writes, Hey, John, great show. Thank you so much, Scott. No, it's a generally accepted part of Star Wars lore, but am I the only one who's concerned that the idea of Chewie owing a quote-unquote life debt to Han is possibly a bad move? Story-wise, to include in canon, won't it just make Han look like a jerk if he's taking Chewie away from his home and family? All right, well, thanks a lot for the question, Scott. And yeah, this whole thing about the life debt, there has been traditional Star Wars lore about how Chewie and Han became inseparable. Much of which had Chewie rescuing or Han rescuing Chewie from an Imperial slave camp. Whatever, there are different incarnations of it, but nothing has ever been definitively said in canon. We are now going to see in canon Han and Chewie meeting. Will they evoke the life debt principle that we've always kind of associated with Han and Chewie? There are a couple reasons why they may, but there are also legitimate reasons why they may not. Why they may. Number one, it's kind of been an age-old accepted part of Star Wars lore that Chewie has a life debt with Han. We've never seen that in canon, but that's always been a part of the lore. So there is value in pursuing it on that, and that's why they may. It also explains why Han and Chewie have been together forever. However, a legitimate reason about why they may not want to do the life debt thing is that if you remove the life debt thing, then that just kind of emphasizes the actual bond that Han and Chewie share. That they are best friends. Like, because when the life debt thing is a cool thing, but it kind of takes away from the specialness of the relationship between Han and Chewie when you only look at it through the terms of life debt. That, oh, he's simply here because he owes him, you know? There is an argument to be made about getting rid of the whole life debt thing and just saying these two characters meet and they become inseparable. They just become yin to each other's yang, and they just become best buddies for life. And there's something to be said for that. Now, let me say this too. If they do go the route of life debt, right? That doesn't necessarily reflect badly on Han. We've all seen other sci-fi shows that evoke this whole idea of, you have saved my life, therefore I am indebted to you. We've seen that in lots of movies, right? And the way it's usually portrayed is, the hero's like, no, that's not necessary. And, I mean, we kind of saw it with Jar Jar, right? We saw it with Jar Jar in Phantom Menace. He has a life debt, you know? Qui-Gon Jinn says, he owes me what you would call a life debt. Your gods demand that his life now belongs to me. That really wasn't, you know, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan said, oh, that's not necessary. That's not necessary. Jar Jar insists, no, it's commanded by the gods it is. Like, I got to come with you. Whether you like it or not, I'm coming with you because I owe you a life debt. And you could play it that way where it's not Han going, hey, you big furry oaf, you owe me your life. You come with me right now and do what I tell you to do. Not necessarily that. They could play it off in such a way that Chewie goes, hey, in Wookiee, I am with you to the end of time now. I'm going to protect you for the rest of my life because I owe you a life debt. And I could be like, look, that's great, pal, but you don't need to do that. That's perfectly fine. And she was like, nope, I'm coming to do it. So you can do the life debt thing without it looking like Han is demanding that Chewie, becomes his servant or anything there's ways you can do it. So I think there's strong arguments for them not using the life debt story hook. But if they do the life debt story hook, I believe there's a way to play that off without it making Han look bad, but rather Chewie being insistent, hey, you saved my life. The rest of my life now is going to be about protecting yours. You could do it. There are ways to do that without making Han look bad. All right, let's move on now to the third question of the day. And the third question today comes to us from Dane Thompson, who writes, love your show. Thank you so much, Dane. Did you see that Lucasfilm is casting a 40 to 50-year-old woman for the role of Mara for Episode 9? Aren't this roles generally masked with another name, or could this really be Mara Jade? Thanks, and keep bringing on the filthy. All right, this is actually a couple of weeks old, this news, quote-unquote news. This quote-unquote news is actually a couple of weeks old. And why am I saying quote-unquote news? Well, it's because of this. This may be true. It might be true. I'm not saying it's not true. However, whenever pieces of news like this come out, I say follow it to the source. The source of this news comes from, now you gotta understand, my YouTube channel is a small YouTube channel, okay? Comparatively to a lot of other channels, mine is a very small YouTube channel. And I got like up to 125,000 subscribers. So I'm a small YouTube channel. This story came from an even smaller YouTube channel called The Hashtag Show. Now, I actually have appreciation for the hashtag show. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because occasional guest here on my show, Migdalia. Migdalia is from the Hashtag Show. So it's great, but they've got like 15,000 subscribers, which is not tiny, but I mean, my channel in the grand scheme of things is pretty small, so theirs is also even smaller. It came from them saying, we have found out that this is happening, but they provided no source whatsoever. No casting sheet, no anything. I have not seen any evidence to back up that this claim was true. Now, I'm not saying they're lying, not at all, but for all I know, he's finding out from his buddy and he's just running with it, because I have seen nothing else support this claim. In the past couple of weeks since this, Star Wars is casting Mara Jade kind of thing exploded and came out, I haven't seen one bit of, corroborating evidence to it. I haven't seen one bit of evidence or reference or anything from any official source that backs it up. It's just one guy on a YouTube channel saying, I heard this. And much like a lot of stuff that I say, which is why I often, when I kind of break anything that I'm saying, hey guys, I heard this, I often follow it up with, but guys, please don't run with that as a news story because that's just me telling you. I mean, you don't know what my source is, blah, blah, blah. So I apply the same rule to other people as well. That this whole thing about Star Wars is casting up to a 50-year-old woman to play a character named Mara, I have seen nothing backing that up. Not a thing. That doesn't mean it's not true. I am not sitting here definitively saying it's not true. I'm simply saying we need to take that with a giant grain of salt because it's coming from one relatively obscure source. I'm relatively obscure, so they are too. One relatively obscure source with no, backup sourcing, evidence, any official source coming out and saying it's true. So take it as a very strong rumor. And the only reason I've gone into it that much right now is because there are people who have been writing to me, John, did you hear that Star Wars is casting so-and-so? It's like, well, that actually, we don't know that. One person on the internet said it, but we have no idea if it's true or not. It could be true. So just for the sake of discussion, let's give it the benefit of the doubt for the moment, and let's say that that's true. That Star Wars is currently looking to cast for Episode 9 a 40 to 50-year-old woman to play a character that they are calling right now Mara. A couple of things come to mind. Number one, even if this is true, the likelihood that it's actually a Mara Jade character is infinitesimally small. Even if this was true, and they were casting for a Mara Jade, they would never put that name in the title. Knowing how secretive Disney is about their films, how incredibly secretive they are around their Star Wars films, they wouldn't put out a casting call and say, we're looking for Mara Jade. So even if such a casting exists, the chances that it's actually to cast for the role of Mara Jade, again, infinitesimally small. To the point of almost not even worth thinking about or considering. The other thing is this, is that if it was a Mara Jade character, it wouldn't be anything like the Mara Jade we knew from the extended universe, understanding the circumstances we're in right now, at which point you'd have to say, well, if it's going to be absolutely nothing like the extended universe Mara Jade, what's the value? If it's going to be a totally foreign character that even diehard Star Wars fans won't recognize because it's a completely different character than what we had in the EU, what's the point of having the character? You can bring in a Grand Admiral Thrawn, because even though the story is different, it is fundamentally the same character that we remember from like Last Command and all those books, right? Even though it's a different story, it's still essentially the same character. I mean, just look at him, just listen to him. He is at his core the same character. With the current circumstances that we're in with Star Wars right now, especially going into Episode 9, this Mara Jade, if it was a Mara Jade, wouldn't be anything like the Mara Jade we know or think about. And if it's going to be like that, then what would be the point? So no, even if this casting report is true, which we do not know if it's true or not, but even if it is, it's 99% likely that the name Mara is just a code name that they're using to cover the name of an actual character. That is the vastly more likely scenario. So when you combine the fact that we have no idea if that story is even true or not, and even if the story was true, there are so many other asterisks to go along with it, I feel pretty safe in saying I do not expect there to be a Mara Jade in Episode 9. I just don't expect it to be there. Regardless of whether that story is true or not, and we don't even know if it's true, but even if it is true, it still means the likelihood of it actually being a Mara Jade is probably pretty infinitesimally small. So I'm going to guess, it's really nothing for us to think about or worry about right now. If I hear anything else from any other type of a source, I'll let you know. But for now, I really don't expect it to be Mara Jade. And just for the record, too, even the people who put out this story pretty much said, yeah, it's probably not actually Mara Jade. So, I mean, just take that into consideration as well. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question, that was the one we just did. The final email question to, did I do question 2? Let me double check here. Yes, I did. Okay, so let's go to the final question. I'm so tired today, guys. The final question today comes to us from Rob Cameron, who writes, Hi, John. I watched Star Wars in 1977 and have been a fan ever since. I didn't want a Solo movie, but the more I see, the more excited I get for this movie. Chewie and the Hollow board made me laugh a lot. In all the clips, it looks and feels like Han and Chewie. Your thought. And you know what, Rob? You just completely nailed the thing that made me go from, well, it's a Star Wars movie, so obviously I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not particularly super excited for it, to being, okay, now I'm on board. And that thing was, in the trailers, they really captured the essence of the relationship of Han and Chewie. Regardless of what you think about Alden Ehrenreich, and I've always been on board for the Alden Ehrenreich. You guys go back to the original show I did when they announced Alden Ehrenreich. I was like, yes, because I think he's a phenomenal actor. But regardless of what you think of Alden Ehrenreich, you gotta concede that they have Lawrence Kasdan, the dude who also wrote Empire Strikes Back, who wrote the screenplay for this movie. Lawrence Kasdan has so captured the essence of the spirit of that relationship, the dynamic between Han and Chewie. And I love it. And I think more than anything else in the trailers or anything else external to that, that really turned me around from just going from, it's Star Wars, so yes, I'm going to be there opening day. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. But if I'm going to be honest, I'm not all that excited about it. It's that nature of that relationship between Han and Chewie that they seem to have captured that has brought me from there to a place of, damn right, Solo's almost here, and I cannot wait for it to arrive. That's what it's done for me. So I am completely on board with what you're suggesting there. I'm in the exact same place. That is the part to me. I am curious to ask you guys, though. Like, if you're somebody who's like us, where, it's a Star Wars movie, so yeah, I can't wait for it to come, but I'm not all that excited. But now you're excited for Solo. What is the thing that changed the narrative for you? What was it about, what piece of news, what piece of casting, what element of one of the trailers, what was it for you? I'm just curious to know if you're one of those people who wasn't so excited about Solo, but now you are. What was it that kind of made you kind of change directions on that? To me, it's the nature of the Han-Chewie relationship that they seem to capture really well. That's what it did. That's what did it for me. What is it that did it for you? Jump into the comments section, leave me your thoughts, and let me know what you guys are thinking about that. Okay, with all that out of the way, we have a whole bunch of live questions that people have been sending in. We're going to take the next probably 20 plus minutes to take some live questions from you guys. So let's dive into that right now. And the first live question today, if I can find it, there we go. First live question today comes to us from RR101, who writes, do you think they will mention anything about the Jedi in the Han Solo movie? If anything, it'll be in terms of lore. Like, I haven't seen anything like that since the days of the Jedi. Like, it'll be past reference and lore. I do not expect we are going to see Force-using characters. I don't think we're going to see a Jedi running around with a lightsaber or anything like that. So I think there is a chance there'll be a mention of Jedi. I mean, they were like amongst the most prominent thing in the galaxy for thousands of years, and they've only been gone for, a couple of decades at this point, right? So I wouldn't doubt it if there's some mention of Jedi or reference. It would totally fit with the universe. I just don't expect to see it really overt, like a new Force-using character. I don't expect to see that. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All right, next one comes to us from Master Yoda, who writes, saw the clip of Solo, did you? The music reminded me of Empire Strikes Back, it did. There are several clips for Solo. If you're talking about the clip that we see Han in the pilot seat of the Falcon, and Chewie is standing up. I'm forgetting the actress's name, but Daenerys. Chewie's standing up behind her, and they realize something's got to be done, and Chewie just does it. And they look at him, since when do you know how to fly? That scene with that Empire Strikes Back music playing in it, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I loved that clip. Loved the clip. So yes, I did see it. Yes, it reminded me a lot of Empire, partially because I believe that's music directly lifted from Empire, and it fit beautifully. I loved it. It made me more excited for it. All right, let's move on here. RR101 follows up with, what are the top 3 Star Wars scenes that still gives you chills every time you watch them? Well, honestly, or I don't like the, what are your top 5? Because I'd like to, that requires me to take some time and really think about it. I will tell you this, though. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, my all-time favorite Star Wars scene of any movie, TV show, past, present, or future, is Return of the Jedi, the Emperor's throne room scene. There's so much in that scene. Father-son conflict, the big evil bad guy, mental combat, physical combat, the music. I mean, oh my God, it might be my all-time favorite scene of any movie ever. That whole sequence of the Emperor's throne room with Luke, Vader, and the Emperor might not just be my favorite scene in Star Wars of all time. It may just very well be my favorite cinematic scene of any movie in history ever, period, bar none, end sentence. Like, it's just, I get chills and excited. My heart starts beating faster just thinking about that scene. A couple of others, but I don't hold me to these because I'm just picking these off the top of my head. The Jabba sail barge scene, I've always loved. It happens at the same time as the throne room scene, but the space battle going on outside of the Death Star. To me, look, that movie came out in 1983. And today still, that is the single greatest space battle scene ever in film. I've never, more than any other Star Wars film that has come since, that battle scene over Endor is the greatest space battle scene ever in the history of film. To me. So that plays in there too. I'm sure there's many more I could think of, but yeah, those are a couple ones that stand out to me the most. All right, we go to Murray for Us, who writes, over under 50% we see Greedo. I'm going to take the under on that. Number one, it would be a bad idea because you don't want to keep shrinking the universe. There's no point in having Greedo there. For all we know, Greedo's on a completely 5 million light years away in a different place, right? Not to mention, at this point, Han hasn't run afoul of Jabba the Hutt yet or anything like that, so there's really no need to have him there. It's not impossible, so I wouldn't say 0%, but if you're setting the line at over under 50%, I'm going to take way under. Which means I still think it's possible, but nowhere near 50% possible, so I'll take the under on the 50. Let's see. Starman writes, what other trilogies do you consider as one film? Yeah, because I kind of just consider, like, well, for instance, when I'm talking about my top 10 all-time favorite films, right, I just name Star Wars. And when I see Star Wars, I mean the combined three of, New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi. I just kind of count it as one film. The other that I do that with is Lord of the Rings. I do that with Lord of the Rings as well. So Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King, I just say Lord of the Rings. So Star Wars and Lord of the Rings take up 2 spots on my all-time top 10 list, not 6 spots. So, and I think those are the only 2 that I really do that for. I'm pretty sure I just really do that for Star Wars and I just do that for Lord of the Rings. So those are the films I do it with. All right, let's keep moving here. Murray for Us writes, in your opinion, who would win in a fight, Vader or Thanos with the stones? Actually, it's kind of funny you mentioned that. Somebody just earlier today sent me a piece of artwork. Some kind of fan-made artwork of Thanos confronting Vader. And Thanos is like, we finally meet, and I'll be honest, I'm not impressed. Me with my Infinity Stones. And then he stopped mid-sentence because Vader just cuts off his arm, his hand with the gauntlet on it. And then Thanos is just like, so I'll go Vader. I'll go Vader on that. Hans Gruber writes, I'm hoping for a Henry Winkler cameo. Fonzie in Solo. Look, the one thing that makes your wish plausible is, of course, that Ron Howard, who was on Happy Days for years and years and years with Henry Winkler, there's a connection there. It's possible. Obviously he wouldn't cameo as Fonz, but I think it's probably pretty unlikely. But even if you're just saying that as a joke, Gruber, it's not outside of the realm of possibility considering who's directing the film. So these guys, they know each other, so they could make it happen if they wanted to. All right, let's go on now. This one comes to us from Let's Watch, and Let's Watch writes, you think Solo I think you mean will. Do you think Solo will end when he's at the bar in A New Hope? No. This movie takes place 10 years prior to the events of A New Hope. So, and we know that Disney and Lucasfilm are possibly looking at Solo as another franchise. So I don't think they've pulled the trigger on greenlighting Solo 2, but if this movie makes $1 billion, if this movie makes $870 million, or, even in that neighborhood, they're going to look at doing a sequel. Like, then you're talking about the types of dollars that you got to consider doing a sequel. And if it's well received. If the audience and the critics receive it well, too, that's got to be part of the equation as well. And so if you end it with the Cantina and A New Hope, you take away any possibility, really, practically speaking, to follow up with a sequel. So, no. If we didn't know this movie takes place 10 years prior to that event, maybe we could consider it, but no, I feel pretty certain. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not basing this on any insider knowledge. I'm just speculating as a fan. And as a fan, I have a hard time believing they would end it there. It just would be counterproductive for them, I think. Okay, Gareth Tucson writes, when Hux reached for the blaster in The Last Jedi, I think he could have killed Kylo if he didn't wake up. Thought he was going to die when Kylo started choking him. I'm not quite sure what are you asking. When Hux reached for the blaster in The Last Jedi, I think he would have killed Kylo if he didn't wake up. Thought he was going to die when Kylo started choking him. I agree with both those statements. Yeah, I think upon learning, seeing Supreme Leader Snoke dead, and seeing Kylo Ren, who you are not a big fan of, laying unconscious, what's the only thing between you and being the new Supreme Leader? Taking out this guy that you don't even like. So yeah, I agree with you. I think he would have killed him if he had the chance. But he didn't have the chance, unfortunately for him. And yeah, I kind of thought Kylo was going to kill him too, but I guess Kylo heeded Snoke's, what's the best word for it? Advice, I guess. He says, hey, that Rex may be a cur, but even a cur like that can be useful in the right circumstances, right? So he learned and he knew that running the First Order would be a lot easier if he had somebody like Hux there. So that's why he didn't kill him. I Do Monologues writes, what Star Wars anthology movie would you make? Oh, Old Republic. Something to do with Old Republic. If not Old Republic, then I would just put out a call to all of our writers and say, my office is open for the next 2 months to take pitch meetings. Come and pitch me an idea, but here's the ground rules. It cannot involve any of the characters we've already met in Star Wars. It cannot be on any of the planets we've already visited on Star Wars. Something like Kashyyyk or something like one or two other worlds can be mentioned on the outside, but none of them can be core worlds in this new movie. So can't have any of the existing characters. Can't be centered on any of the places we've already been. Set it in a different time period. I don't care if it's 20 years ago, 200 years ago, or 2,000 years ago. Basically, give me a new story. Go. Anything that expands the Star Wars universe to me instead of contracting it, which is what you do when you constantly go back to, let's do a young version of this character, and now let's do a young version of that character, and let's now look at this happening. And there are benefits to it, yes, but you are consistently contracting the universe and making it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Star Wars is like a small town with a population of 100 people, where even if you just go for a walk to the store, you're probably going to bump into everybody. Hence, like one of the previous questions, how about Greedo being in there? Star Wars is a 100-person town. Like, the universe is so small that we've got to bump into every character we've ever met before. You know what I'm saying? So what I would do, I would just send a memo out to all of our writers and say, for the next 2 months, I'm taking pitch meetings. Come up with your best pitch for a story that doesn't involve characters we've had, does not happen in the exact same time period as any of the movies, and doesn't focus on any of the worlds we've already visited. Give me your best creative idea. Go. And then I would go from there. Anything that has something to do with expanding the universe instead of contracting it. Let's see. Mr. T-Bone81 writes, a friend invited me to Solo premiere on Thursday. Always a dream to go to a Star Wars premiere. So excited. Hope to meet you there. Thanks for all you do. Oh, you're going to actually go to the premiere on Thursday. That's awesome. Congratulations. And, it's a small area. Maybe you will. Make sure if you see me, you come over and say hi. It always amazes me here's one of the fun things. Okay, let me just tell you a little fun story here. All right, so when I go to these premieres, because I go to a bunch of them for Disney, I've gone to a bunch for Warner Brothers, a bunch for Universal, a number for Paramount. I've only been to 1 or 2 for Fox, but at any rate, one of the cool things is when you get there, right, there are 2 different areas you can walk down. One is kind of the main thing where they send the celebrities and the stars to walk down this part of the carpet. And sometimes it's all just one carpet that everybody walks down. But many times there's the main part of the carpet where they send all the celebrities. And then there's part of that main carpet you get to walk down as well, part of it. But then you kind of tuck behind and go down this kind of slightly roped off area where if you're just a guest of the premiere, that's where you walk. It's where the nobodies go. I am a nobody. So I walk down that line of the rope, on that side of the rope quite often. You know, you've seen pictures of me and Anne on red carpets, but that's because like for the first part of the red carpet, you can be on the big main part. But then if you're a nobody like me, when you get to a certain part, then you go behind this rope and you walk down that way while the main celebrities walk down here so all the press and everything can talk to them. Anyway, what is often fun, and this happened to us at the Infinity War premiere, is I guess there are a lot of people who watch my shows for whatever reason who live in Los Angeles, which is great. I mean, it's a movie town, so that makes sense. What's really funny though, and this happened a lot at the Infinity War premiere, is Anne and I will be walking along and being on the main carpet or behind the rope, whichever one, and then having people from like behind the barriers, because you got all the fans screaming, ah, that Robert Downey Jr. goes over and signs autograph. It's funny when we walk to a certain part and I'm walking with all the other nobodies, like me, nobody with all the other nobodies, and we're walking down. And then fans from beyond the barriers yelling out, Anne Campea, John Campea, or whatever, and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the other nobodies in front of me and the nobodies behind me are like, so who is this schlubby-looking asshole from Canada in front of us? Who's this guy? And like people stopping us in lines and all this kind of stuff. That's always a lot of fun. So anyway, Mr. T-Bone, if you do see me, please by all means come up and say hi. I love meeting people who watch the shows. I'm always floored by it when it happens. So please take a minute and say hi when you do. That would be great. It's still surreal to me. But anyway, Gareth Tucson writes, I like Rose Tico. I didn't get the hate. Loved her arc. Could be a bit more useful for the overall plot. Comparison with Jar Jar to me makes no sense. No, see, the difference between, look, I was not a fan of how they utilized the Rose character. I love the girl who played her. You know what? Hold a second. This is worth taking me a second to do. I don't know why, for the life of me, I am not remembering right now, off the top of my head, the name of the actress who played Rose. I should know. I should totally know, and yet I'm having a hard time remembering her name. Anyway, sweetheart of a girl. My wife started following the actress on social media before the movie ever came out, and like, she's like a true geek girl. The girl who plays Rose is like a true geek girl. Like she's always talking about Dungeons and Dragons and all the geeky things she's doing. It just made my wife completely fall in love with her. Anyway, we ran into her at the Star Wars The Last Jedi premiere. And Anne, who just freaked right out, had a chance to meet her and just loved her. So anyway, it's funny because when they met, I said to her, and I feel so stupid that I'm forgetting, I'll move over here a second. I feel so stupid that I'm forgetting her name. But like I mentioned to her, I said, by the way, one of the main reasons my wife even wanted to come tonight, besides the fact that it's Star Wars, is she just wanted to have a chance to meet you. And as soon as I said that, she did this. She turns, she goes, oh my God. And she turns around and grabs Anne and just squeezes her. And she grabs Anne by the hand. She's like, come over here. I have to go over here, but come with me. And she starts dragging Anne around with her. She was just so freaking delightful. I mean, just so bloody delightful. It's hard not to be in love with her. However, that didn't change my opinion that however adorable she was, I felt they misused her character in the movie. That's how I felt. That doesn't mean that's how you need to feel. Clearly, you appreciated the character a lot more than I did. I thought they could have done better with the character. I thought she was portrayed great. I love the actress who played her. She's just a warm bowl of sunshine. I just love her. But I am one of the people, though I really like The Last Jedi, I am one of those people that I thought, man, you really could have done better with this character. You have a really interesting character here. You set her up well with her family connections all within the Resistance and who she is, and you got this great actress portraying her. You could have done better. That's how I felt at any rate. But I'll agree with you, though. Even though I didn't like how they utilized the Rose character or didn't utilize her, I thought any comparisons to Jar Jar were moronic. I thought any comparisons to Jar Jar were moronic. Because while they may not have used the Rose character right, she did not. I never felt the Rose character detracted from the movie. Failed to add much, but never detracted. Jar Jar was a detraction from beat one. I mean, Jar Jar just pulled you out of the movie every single second he was on screen. The Rose character, not so much. The Rose character, maybe they didn't utilize her right. Maybe she failed to add much to the film. But I never felt that the Rose character at any point was a detraction to the movie. So that's kind of the big difference to me. So I agree with you on that completely. All right, let's move on here. Andrew Hand writes, Andrew from PEI Canada here. I love Prince Edward Island, man. I love Prince Edward Island. It's a beautiful, gorgeous place. If you ever get a chance to visit there, by all means do. How hurt do you think Mark Hamill was after the way they took Luke's character in episode 8? He seems to live and breathe Luke. He loved it. He loved it. Like, everybody tries to twist, like, take certain comments he makes, put them out of context and move them around. At the end of the day, Mark Hamill loves this movie and loved what they did with his character. You can disagree all you want, but I stood there beside the man. I've had conversations with his son. All right. I've got Nathan Hamill and I have a really good mutual friend, Arena. And so we've hung out a number of times. We've hung out at Comic-Con, blah, blah, blah. So you can have your theory all you want. I'm just telling you, I've actually heard it from them. I was standing right beside Mark Hamill, standing there talking to Bob Iger and talking to Alan Horn and talking to Adam Driver, like right there at the premiere. It's like, and he wasn't putting on some act, like he was glowing. Mark Hamill loves this movie. He loves it. You can feel about it. That doesn't mean you have to like if you're one of the people who doesn't love The Last Jedi, that doesn't mean at all that you need to like it too. Not at all. But this false narrative going around that Mark Hamill didn't like The Last Jedi, I'm just telling you that is just incorrect. That's just wrong. Whatever out of context ways people try to promote it, otherwise, he really liked the movie. And if you don't believe, just ask him, and he'll tell you. But at any rate, he loved what they did. It was bold, and you know what? And he's told the story himself. That when he first read it, he's like, man, this is not what I would have done. And to be fair, so would I. If I had read the script before the movie came out, I would say, yeah, this is not what I want Luke to do. I want Luke to take out 100 bad guys. I want him to just bitch a bunch of fools. That's what I want Luke Skywalker to do. But they gave us something different, and I ended up really appreciating what they did. They went character instead of action. And I actually really lapped it up. The stuff about, I mean, I'm very vocal about the things of The Last Jedi that I didn't appreciate, but man, the thing I loved the most about The Last Jedi was what they did with Luke. I thought it was the most human, the most character-driven thing they could have done. And it was bold and it was different. And not everybody agrees. And that's fine if you don't agree. I have no quarrel with you if you don't agree with me. That's totally fine. And maybe you like the prequels and I don't. That doesn't mean we have to have quarrel. It just means I didn't like him and you did. That's cool. But this narrative that went around that Luke or that Hamill was somehow so dismayed with what they did, that's not true at all. Because even in that same story, everybody likes to tell that story about how Mark Hamill said when he read the stuff about The Last Jedi, he told Rian Johnson, I disagree with everything you're doing with them. But they never tell you the next part of the conversation. And the next part of the conversation when you talk to Mark Hamill is, but hey man, you're the filmmaker, it's your vision, we're going to do it. And at the end of it, he ended up really loving what they did. So I think it's not what he would have wanted them to do in advance. It's not what I would have wanted them to do in advance. But like me, at the end of the day, when he watched the movie, he just was thrilled with it. He loved it. Like he was like buzzing when we came out of that movie. He was so excited about it. And anyway, that's just the way it is. I mean, you can pretend that you don't agree, but it doesn't matter what you think. I know, I was there. So anyway, there's that. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, over under 30% in Solo, we see a Han shot first nod. I have a feeling we will. They'll do it subtly. It won't be, wow, Han, it looks like you shot first. I don't think it'll be punching you in the face, obvious. I think it'll be a little bit more subtle. Like maybe some little line, he'll take somebody out, always get in the first shot. Or something a little bit more subtle. like that, right? So I'll take the over on 30%. I'm not saying it's definite, but I'll take the over on 30%. Zach Houston writes, supposedly this story is near and dear to Lawrence Kasdan, and he's been the driving force behind the film getting made regardless of whether it was asked for by the fans' audience or not. Can't wait. Kasdan has been very passionate about this. Kasdan, he was pretty much retired, but he said, I'll do this one. And actually, Kasdan is part of the reason why Lord Miller got fired, rightfully so. And I say that as a big Lawrence Kasdan fan, or as a big fan of Lord Miller. But they had an agreement of what this film was going to be. Lord Miller then went and started to make it very differently. And Kasdan's like, this is my script that you are discarding. And part of the reason they made a change was to get back to the script that Lawrence Kasdan had written and put together. And I think, look, for when somebody asks me, what should I have to feel hopeful about Solo? Like, I've had a couple of people who weren't thrilled with Star Wars The Last Jedi who've said to me, what, like, nuggets should I hold on to give me hope for Solo? I usually say a couple of things. Number one, Ron Howard has directed some remarkably good films. Number two, I think Alden Ehrenreich is a fantastic actor, but also not the least of which, Lawrence Kasdan wrote the script. And they even seem to have made a part of the motivation behind the change of directors was the fact that they wanted to get back to his script. The guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back wrote this. Now, none of that guarantees that this movie's going to be good. The movie could be train wreck awful. It could be absolutely train wreck awful. But if you're looking for what things are there that could give us hope for it, I think those are three very solid things. You got the writer of Empire Strikes Back who wrote it. They made changes in the director just to get back to the script. I think the lead actor is a tremendously gifted actor. And the third thing is you got Ron Howard there. So those are three things that I think should give you some optimism. Again, doesn't mean the movie's going to be good. It might be a train wreck, but I think we all have solid reason to feel good about it. So now we just have to wait and see if the movie actually is any good or not. Boramint writes, Ewoks movie, love them or hate them? Hate them. Hate them. Even as a kid, even as a young kid watching them, I thought, And you know what was always really funny? You go through this whole movie, the first Ewoks Battle for Endor movie was about them meeting this little girl and then saving her family. The whole thing was about saving the family. Then they do another Ewoks movie. First thing they do in the first 2 minutes, kill the family. And the family's dead. I was like, okay. So no, it was never big on the Ewoks movies or the animated show, to be honest with you. We are the Ewoks. Blah, 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 forest moon. I can't remember the exact lyrics, but you remember the animated thing? Yeah, not so good. Third Man 3 writes, no. It looks like we had a jump here. Hold on a second. We had a bit of a jump. Let me back up here. Okay, here we go. Queer Soul writes, great show. Thank you so much. Does a person in Star Wars actually has... Let me try this again. Does a person in Star Wars actually has better Force abilities if he or she is related to someone Force sensitive? It's controversial. No. The only example of that ever was Luke Skywalker. But remember, in the traditional run of Jedi did not have kids. Like, that's one of the great things about the ending of The Last Jedi, is it gets back to this, the poignant point that the Force just manifests itself and just in different people across the galaxy. For thousands of generations, Jedis didn't have kids to beget other Jedi. They identified when a kid was Force sensitive, and then they took them to the Jedi Temple to train them to be a Jedi. Because they were born with it. The little kid with the broom, just a random kid who was born with the Force. Rey herself, random person, but chosen to be the one that would bring balance to the Force, balancing out the incredible power that was in Kylo Ren that now she had, but random person, discarded by her family and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things that I love about that one of the things The Last Jedi really did was to get back to those foundational roots, that it's not about lineage or bloodline. The history of the Jedi has never been that way. Only the Skywalker thing was the little asterisks and all that. And that's why I thought it was really important. You guys know, I've said for years, before The Last Jedi came out, it was important that Rey not be a Skywalker. I didn't just believe she wasn't going to be a Skywalker. I believed it was important that she not be a Skywalker. Or that she not be related somehow to some other thing, because that's completely contradictory to everything else, like for thousands of generations of the Jedi. Now, of course, there are other side stories that tell other tales. Yes, I get it. But generally speaking, Jedis didn't have offspring that then became new Jedis. So that was never the thing. It was always a new person being born, and then they would just have Force abilities, right? So yeah, I don't see it at all that way. I don't look. Anakin arguably up until a certain point, maybe the most powerful Jedi ever, as he would say it. I can even stop people from dying. Like he didn't come from now granted they had the Immaculate Conception and everything, but still, he did not come from a lineage of Jedis. Right? Even him. So I don't think so. I think Rey really makes that point. Rey, who is as powerful as Kylo, she has just as much Force power as Kylo. She is as much as in tune with the Force as Kylo, and she came from nobody. So I would say no. Okay, next one. Comes to us from Coolio Woolio, who writes, do you in fact speak Italian? What's Return of the Jedi in Italian? No, as I've mentioned before, it's like growing up in an Italian family. I think a lot of people who are Spanish, have Spanish heritage or Portuguese or whatever, kind of have the same thing. I grew up around it. So when my dad and my grandfather or my dad and my uncles or whatever are speaking in Italian, I've grown over the years to be able to, and read up a bunch that I can tell you what they're talking about. I couldn't give you a word-for-word translation, but I can roughly tell you what they're talking about. Anne's the same way with her Tagalog, in the Filipino language, Tagalog. So she can sit there and listen to her mom, and when her dad was still with us, listen to her mom and dad talk, and she could like her mom will talk to her. It's still very frustrating for me. Her mom will talk to her in Tagalog, and Anne's like, okay, Mama, yeah, we can do that, or whatever. But Anne can't speak Tagalog, so she can hear it. I'm kind of like that. I can listen to a conversation, kind of tell you generally the gist of it, but I can't sit down and do conversational Italian, for example. Coolio Woolio follows up with, telling you, Solo will beat The Last Jedi's global box office. I don't know, man. That's 1.3 billion. That's a tall order. But again, you can't say it will, and I can't say it won't until we see the movie. Like, we got to get our heads around how good or bad this movie is. Because once we grip in on how good or how bad this movie is, then we'll start to be able to maybe long-term forecast, get a feel for how the audience is responding to it, and then maybe make some guesses. Until we see how good or bad the movie is, it's impossible to say. I'll say that it's possible it might hit 200 million opening weekend. Maybe, I still don't think so, but it's possible. Because that's all about the pre-buzz. It's not about how good the movie is. Opening weekend's not about how good the movie is. It's just about the pre-buzz and the marketing. Can it cross the $1 billion mark? And even if it does, by some heaven-sent miracle, cross the $1 billion mark, can it get another 300 million on top of that and get to 1.3 billion? I don't know. It's a tall order. Here's hoping you're right, because if you're right, that means Solo's a really good movie and people went back to see it multiple times. Yay. So I'm hoping you're right. I can't feel good about it, though. Right now, I can't feel good about it. But who knows, man? We'll just wait and see. All right. Next up, Taiki75 writes, in my honest opinion, the best Star Wars film after the original trilogy was the second half of Rogue One. I adored Rogue One. I still like The Force Awakens better. I remember when I saw Rogue One, at first I was like, I think I like that more than Force Awakens. But the more I thought about it, no, I still like The Force Awakens more. But Rogue One, and by the way, I'm one of the rare people, I actually like the first half of Rogue One better than the second half. The way they dealt with character and evolving the mythology and all the stuff in the history of the character and just the setup of it all, the character work, I thought was great. And some people found the first half of Rogue One kind of slow. I don't know. As much as I like the second half of Rogue One, especially the Vader scene, obviously, but I have a very deep appreciation for the first half of Rogue One, probably even more than the second half. But that's just me. I know I'm rare in that. But yeah, it's a great movie, man. It's a great movie. Natalie Piacento writes, or Nate Piacenti. Let me try that again. Nate Piacentino writes, greetings from Kitchener, Ontario. My sister lived in Kitchener for a while. I've spent many weekends in Kitchener. It's a good university town. I thought it was a good place to pick up girls. Not that I was ever very successful. Gio, happy belated Star Wars Day. Do you think JJ will move Kylo's scar back to where it was in The Force Awakens? Because that would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. That would be very, very funny. You know what? I'm very curious to see what JJ is going to do. I am. I'm very curious. And look, it's totally unpopular, and I'm only giving it a 5% chance, so that means 95% chance I don't think it's going to happen. But I still hold on to that. I think there's a 5% chance that Mark Hamill not only appears in the movie as Luke, but as a living Luke. Got sneezed. Pardon me. Not just as a Force ghost. I believe there's a 5% chance that Luke Skywalker is still alive and never actually died. They never explicitly said in the movie that he's dead. They never said it. Now, I believe 95% chance, yes, he is. But I believe there's that 5% chance that JJ can utilize that. The fact that in the movie, they never definitively said Luke Skywalker is dead. They never said that. It's implied with him disappearing, much like Obi-Wan disappeared and Yoda disappeared. So it's implied. It is definitely implied, but never explicitly said. I believe there's a razor-thin margin of a loophole there that if JJ wanted to say Luke actually physically transported himself away from the island because now he knew that Kylo knew about the island, so he couldn't stay there, so he summoned all this Force power and literally teleported himself somewhere else. Unlikely, 95% unlikely, but I still believe there's a fragment of the chance. So not only could JJ move his scar, I think he could bring Luke Skywalker back. But again, 95% chance that that's not going to happen. Let's see. Dakota Barber writes, when is the social and review embargo for Solo? I do not know. I'm going to guess that the social embargo is going to be the night of the premiere. That is Thursday the 10th, this coming Thursday. I don't know that for certain, but you're showing it to like 2,000 people, so I'm assuming the social embargo is going to be lifted. The actual review embargo, probably a couple days after that. And remember, they're doing the review, the will be maybe a few days after that. Although I can let you guys know, so the movie opens on the 25th. We will do our Solo completely open spoiler discussion video on Sunday the 27th. So Sunday, May the 27th is when we will do our big open spoiler review discussion, much like what we did with Avengers Infinity War. So keep your eyes open for that. Okay, next one. Kathleen Kennedy. Good to have her here. Fans that dislike The Last Jedi hate women and minorities. Well, see, here's the thing. There is what we as human beings do is we do irrational things. And one of the irrational things that some people, a small fraction of people who didn't like The Last Jedi, they say, anybody who does like it just thinks anybody who doesn't like it just hates women. That's not what people are saying. However, unfortunately, I have personally seen, you have personally seen, a lot of misogynistic and racist shit surrounding the stuff that has gone on in the Star Wars universe. I'm sorry, it's just a fact. And I believe that these backward-thinking, cousin-humping morons represent a fragment, a small portion of the general perfectly fine movie-going fans, Star Wars fans, who just didn't like The Last Jedi. I think the majority of people who didn't like The Last Jedi simply didn't like it because it didn't work for them. Much like I watched it and it worked for me, and it didn't work for somebody else. Nothing wrong with that. But there is a segment of, and there's no denying this, the proof is everywhere. There is no denying that within the group of people who don't like The Last Jedi, there is a tribe, if you will, that specifically decided not to like The Last Jedi because there's some black dude in it. Woof! Who puts black people in sci-fi movies? Oh God, a woman's in the lead role? Ugh, fuck that movie. It's gotta be a white man. It's gotta be a white man. If it ain't that, then fuck that movie. It's just social justice warrior bullshit. No, go back and keep humping your cousin, Jethro. It's that part. There are those people, and all you have to do is just get on like Rotten Tomatoes comments section. The amount of vile, racist, sexist bullshit written in there. I'm sorry, it's there. You just go see it. It's there. They do not represent the majority of the people who did not like The Last Jedi. Far from it. They did not. But unfortunately, it is a matter of fact that there was this huge, poisonous, toxic racism and sexism that came out from that. It's like, why the hell does the last couple of Star Wars movies have to have female leads? Well, we just had 6 Star Wars movies in a row with male leads. Were you saying they had a male agenda? No? Well, then why is now having female leads a female agenda? Oh yeah, have 55 movies straight with white male dude in the leads and there's no agenda. No agenda if there's 55 in a row. Put 2 or 3 movies with female leads. It's an agenda. Oh, I can't handle it. It's infuriating to me. Right? It's just absolutely infuriating to me. I remember when Black Panther was coming out. And I had this one argument with somebody online. That was basically like, why the fuck does everything now everything's got to have a black lead? Why is it Black Panther black lead? It clearly Disney's just all about pushing their social justice warrior agenda. I'm like, you do know that the previous 17 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies all had male leads, white male leads. That, right? 17 in a row. So, they literally said, so? Well, so they have one movie that has a character named Black Panther from Wakanda with a black lead, with a tremendously gifted actor in the black lead, and to you, one movie equals social justice warrior agenda, but 17 movies in a row with white dudes in the leads, no agenda. You don't get to play that game. It's either all of them have an agenda or none of them do. They're just going, oh, hey, this particular movie has a black lead in it. Awesome, let's do a movie about him. But now it's an agenda. And we saw so much of that brought into Star Wars The Last Jedi as well. And I am not dismissing. You see, it would be a mistake to dismiss people who didn't like The Last Jedi and just saying, oh, you're just sexist or racist. No. But at the same time, you cannot ignore the fact that there was a huge sexist and racist thing behind a lot of it. All you got to do is read the chat forums and you'll see for yourself. So it is this real toxic, poisonous part of the Star Wars fandom that's become infected with it that we haven't seen in years prior. And I'm hoping they like that, figuratively speaking, I'm hoping that part of it just dies off. So anyway, that's all there is to it. Anyway, we move on. Sorry, guys, I get caught up in a thing. Oh, I'm over time already. Listen, guys, make sure you don't send in any more questions. I'm going to try. I'm way over time, but I'm going to try to get through all the questions that we still have here. Please do not send in any more questions, all right? I'm going to finish off the ones that we got here. Joshua Gale writes, the 4 theaters near me here in South Chicago are already sold out on Solo Thursday and Friday. At the theater this last weekend for Infinity War, all everyone was talking about was seeing it next. Yeah, I mean, that's the exact kind of impression I got from movie-going audience as well, both in hearing people buzzing about it after a movie's been done or seeing the reaction and pop that the Solo movie's getting. It's really gone a long way to making me change my mind about how big this movie could be. Jonathan Aglin writes, John, I love you, but people want Solo, even if it's not a majority. And I think there is a lot of people who are excited, even if they don't want it. Well, look, obviously when I say that, oh my God, nobody liked that movie. Obviously, that's hyperbole. I mean, obviously, there are some people who like that movie. Doesn't matter what movie we're talking about. If I say, oh man, everybody loves that movie, well, obviously, that's not literally true. There's some hyperbole there. When I say, like, a movie nobody was asking for, a solo movie without Harrison Ford as Solo, obviously, there were some people out there that were cool with that. Obviously, I was just using hyperbole. So clearly they were. And I think people are getting excited about it. Like, I'm one of them. I'm one of them that was not excited before, but I am getting excited. I think there's a lot of people in the same train as me that maybe not so excited at first, but the closer we're getting, the more and more on board we're getting, and we'll see how that kind of culminates with opening weekend. Vince writes, hey John, followed you since the Wall-E review back in 2008. Oh man, I remember doing that review. Will possible huge success for Solo lessens chances of Star Wars moving to new territories? I don't necessarily think so. No. I think if they do something great with Solo, who is arguably maybe the most popular of the Star Wars characters, and if it works, I think it does a couple of things. One, it doesn't necessarily negate the chances of doing other movies that expand the universe. And yet at the same time, I think it would increase chances of movies like the Obi-Wan movie that they're trying to get going right now, right? I don't believe those two things are mutually exclusive, especially when you look at how much Star Wars content they're talking about making. Whether it's Rian Johnson's new trilogy, the Game of Thrones guys doing their thing, the Jon Favreau TV series. We got all this Star Wars stuff happening. I don't think it's an either or situation. I think it's going to be a both and. I really do. Coolio Woolio writes, The Last Jedi was like a TV episode. Liked it, but Solo looks fun. It does look fun. And I think that kind of goes along with the nature of the character. That suave scoundrel. I mean, with the sarcastic note and everything, it does look fun. And if they can deliver that, give us that sense of adventure and fun and that banter with him and Chewie and throw in some Donald Glover there as Lando, who looks great as Lando, we could be in for a really great time. Or it could be a train wreck. We'll have to see. Flick Talk writes, is it really balance in the Force if only the light is in power and the darkness is oppressed? Well, here's the thing. I think, the Jedi is about maintaining that balance. Because remember what Rey said on the island. On that island, it's peaceful, but in the thing of peace, there is light and there is darkness. There's life and there's death and all that kind of stuff. In a galaxy where justice is prevailing and the Jedi kind of are overseeing and protecting that peace, there is still light and darkness and there's still life and death. People are still dying. There is a balance to it all. And I believe the Jedi more represent the balance than the dark side, who are all about upheaving that balance and turning everything to darkness. Whereas the Jedi are not so much about light, but as much about maintaining the balance. That's what the role of the light is, maintaining the balance. And so, yeah, I kind of see that not as being contradictory for me. At least that's how I've always looked at it as a fan. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of how I've looked at it. Ben Rayner writes, the fun tone of the movie is what turned it for me. And that's another thing of it. Yes, they're nailing that chemistry between Han and Chewie, but it's also the fun nature of the, you're really capturing Solo. You're getting that fun swashbuckler nature of it in those trailers as well. So I totally agree with you as well, Ben. Third Man 3 writes, have you watched The Director and the Jedi? It's amazing, but it also goes deep into Mark's thoughts about where they took Luke in the story. I have still not watched it. And I know that's ridiculous because I'm in it. So I've watched the first 3 minutes of it because I'm in the first 3 minutes of The Director and the Jedi on the Last Jedi Blu-ray, but I have still not sat down and watched the whole documentary. Isn't that ridiculous? I'm in it and I still haven't watched it. But I will get around to watching it absolutely because I've been dying to watch it. Glitter Geek TV writes, we need a Pixar Star Wars film. Thoughts? Oh my God. I will admit, I don't wake up in the morning and go, I need me a Pixar. I need Paul Newman singing Star Wars. I don't wake up thinking that, but the concept of it is amazing. When you understand what Pixar does with their films, how much depth it's all about the characters. It's all about the characters and the story in Pixar films. And that's why they're so great. If they were to actually tackle a Star Wars film of some kind, that would be amazing. I'd be totally on board for that. I had peanuts earlier, and I think I just had a little piece of peanut still caught back there. So yeah, I may not wake up thinking about it, but when you mention it, shit, yeah, I'd be on board for a Star Wars thing done by Pixar. Absolutely, I would. Good synergy there, too, between the companies. Kevin Campbell writes, could Anakin show up as a Force ghost in 9? I don't think it's likely, but is it possible? Yes. Especially with the warm reception that Hayden Christensen got. Good Canadian kid, by the way. With the warm reception he got at the last Star Wars Celebration. Possible? Yes. Likely? I don't think so, but definitely possible. Kevin Campbell writes, JJ said, The Last Jedi Backlash won't affect Episode 9, and I think Luke is dead, but could still appear as a Force ghost. Yeah, I don't think, look, if JJ decides to bring him back, I think he'll bring him back because for his story, that's what he wants to do. I don't think he'll do it as a reaction to Backlash. Never react to Backlash. If you're the directors, you tell your story. I think JJ may do it because it may suit his story. I don't think he'll do it as a result of fan backlash. I don't think so at all. So I definitely think, look, I think there's an 80% chance we see Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi. Out of that 80% chance, John, big fan, I've heard that Star Wars Episode 9 won't be influenced by The Last Jedi. What does that mean? I think that just goes back to what Kevin was just saying. I think what we've heard is that it won't be influenced by any of the fan reaction, either positively or negatively. JJ's going to come in and he's going to do his movie. Regardless of what fans who loved it say, regardless of fans who didn't like it say, he's just going to come in and do his movie. That's what I think they meant by that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of the way I interpret it. Okay, guys, that will do it for this week's installment of Star Wars Talk, talking about Star Wars. Next week, oh my God, next week's show, I will have watched. By the next episode of Star Wars Talk, I will have seen Solo. I'm pretty excited about that. Cannot wait to share my thoughts with you guys about that as well. All right, guys. Hey, listen, that will do it for me here for this week. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, guys, bye-bye.